Hi, today my guest is Michel Barnier. Michel Barnier is the chief negotiator from the EU on the Brexit. The question is, Brexit or not Brexit? I don't know if he has an answer. We will see. And what will be after? What is the future of the Union? This is our question. I don't know how far he can go, but it will be very interesting to discuss with him, and this, naturally, uncut. Mr. Barnier.
Mr. Cohn-Bendit.
Okay. Brexit or not Brexit? None of the European citizens, perhaps none of the British citizens, understand a clue what's going on. Please help us. Explain us what is going on.
First of all, the general feeling on the EU side, the Parliament, where we are, the member states.
In Strasbourg, yes.
In Strasbourg, is a feeling of real gravity and responsibility. Let me just recall that everybody on our side regrets the Brexit and sometimes do not understand why the British people, the majority of the British people voted for the Brexit. But we regret this vote, but we are ready to implement it and we have to respect it. So the Brexit creates a huge number of uncertainties everywhere, like a divorce, like any separation between two people. So what we did for the last year and a half is, thanks to this treaty, this is a treaty, I can recognize
the Brexit agreement.
The Brexit agreement is to, as for any separation, any divorce, to put in this text legal answers.
Where you put the knives, which house you keep for the British,
yes,
which house you keep for the European.
Let me just take one example. There are 3.5 million citizens from the EU living and working in the UK. In a sense, there is 1.5 million British citizens living in one or the other
European country.
So each and every of these citizens have citizen rights for residence, social rights. And each of them are very concerned what would happen after the Brexit. So we try to answer to this question and to put in this text legal certainty for the acquired rights until the end of 2020.
But imagine there is no deal. Is no deal. Then all these rights are over?
No, because in that case, we will maintain our priority, the priority of the Parliament, the priority of the Member States, to protect the rights. So in any case, in case of no deal, which is not my option, I'm not working, you don't need a negotiator for no deal, you need a negotiator for a deal. And I'm still working for a deal, for the deal, this deal. In the case of no deal, unfortunately, we will maintain the priority to protect the citizen rights of the British citizens living in the EU at the condition that there will be a reciprocity on the UK side.
Tell me, do you believe in any deal after all what happened? Frankly, do you believe in a deal?
But the point is to know what the UK wants.
What do they want?
My answer to this question depends clearly on what the answer of the UK side, what they want. If they want to leave the EU in an orderly manner, if they want to leave the EU as decided by the Brexit referendum in an orderly manner, that means that this treaty is the only one possible. The only deal.
Can you renegotiate something?
No, we can't.
Page 120?
No, we cannot renegotiate because it's not our document. It is a common, agreed document with the UK government. So it is the best and the only deal possible if the UK wants to leave the EU in an orderly manner. The other option is to leave without a deal. In that case, this document will be no longer useful. But my personal feeling as a negotiator is to protect the interest of the EU side, the EU business, the EU citizens, the EU local communities, the farmers and so on, and also in the interest of the UK side, we need this deal because it's the only way to organize and to limit the consequences of the Brexit.
But what will happen now? They said they refuse the deal, they refuse the agreement on the agreement on the agreement, they refuse everything.
Generally speaking, Daniel, I do not like the speculations and the speculators. So I don't want to speculate. Let me just say that now the impasse where we are has to be solved by the UK side. Huh?
And which sign did I give you?
No, they are waiting for a new vote tonight and a third vote tomorrow. The second vote will be about to vote against the no deal.
Yes.
Okay. And tomorrow to ask for a prolongation of the negotiations. And the answer for the EU side will be immediately for what?
Yes, but for what? You know, prolongation. I can't understand. I'm a EU citizen. Prolongate for what?
It could be a technical prolongation because if the deal is voted, they need some more weeks to implement.
But then they vote the deal.
Okay, they have to, first of all, to vote the deal. It is a prerequisite. Could be a tactical, a political prolongation. In that case, I know the answers and the reaction of the EU side, the EU leaders, the EU Parliament. What for? Why do you need a prolongation? So it is for organizing a new referendum, new elections or not? I cannot answer to this question at the place of the UK government.
But we have a problem. We will have the election, European election. But can you imagine organizing an election in Great Britain for the European Parliament because they have to leave?
The only point is, at this stage, the answer to the prolongation will be the answer, the responsibility of the EU leaders by unanimity, European Council, next week or a little bit later. The only legal point I want to mention, to inform you, is that if the prolongation is long enough to go after the European election end of May, at that moment, at that time, the UK will be a member state with all the rights and the obligation of a member state.
So they will be obliged to...
In particular, let me just mention this point, in particular to protect the citizen rights of the EU citizens living in the UK. And these citizens have the right to vote. The same for the British citizens in EU. So if the UK will be, at that time, member of the EU, it will have to organize the European election.
But it would be a completely foolish thing.
Sure,
okay.
I think.
I mean, you know, when you listen to people now,
sure.
They are completely, they say, why don't we say, like parents say to the children, enough is enough, game over?
Yes, the negotiation is over about the divorce. And to be clear, the most important for me is not to organize the divorce in an orderly manner. The most important is to organize the future relation. Let me just precise it that we need 2 years, 3 or 4 years more after the divorce to organize the new partnership with the UK, which is much more important. In any case, the UK will remain a close partner, a friend and an ally. And we have to organize these new relations because the UK leaving the EU in a new basis.
I have a last question on Brexit.
Yes.
Are you optimistic?
Let me recall what one of the fathers of the EU answered to this question. Are you optimistic, Mr. Jean Monnet, or are you pessimistic? And his answer was exactly what would be my answer to your question. I'm not pessimistic, I'm not optimistic, I'm determined. I'm determined to protect the EU interests, including the citizens' rights, which is today and will remain my first priority. I'm decided and determined to be respectful of the UK and its people, and I have lots of respect and admiration for this country for a long time, and I am determined to protect the peace in Ireland, the Good Friday Agreement in its dimensions, and at the same time in Ireland, the first goal is to protect the peace, but also to protect the integrity of the single market. Let me just recall one point which is important, speaking about Ireland. We are not on a dogmatic or ideological case. We are a very practical case about the single market. If there is no border on the island of Ireland, and we do not want to rebuild a border, we need to control the goods, because any and every good entering in Northern Ireland coming from Great Britain,
who is not anymore in the EU,
yes, will entering in the same time immediately in France, in Germany, in Poland, in Spain, because we are in the same single market with the Republic of Ireland. So we need to control somewhere to protect the consumers, to protect the budget, and to protect the businesses. So yes, that is the point in the
Look, I'm Theresa May.
Yes.
I'm Theresa May. I say, Michel, help me. I have to find a sentence where you say that at the end we won't be obliged to say in the custom union. Because this, I don't get a majority. Sure. What do we do?
So we need time. For a long time we tried to help. And even this week, until Monday night and at midnight with the President Juncker, we tried to find the word, the guarantee, the clarification about this treaty, around this treaty, not reopening the treaty, but around the treaty to give the assurance that we have no intention to trap the UK definitively in the same custom union. It is just an insurance, as you have your own insurance for your house. You need an insurance in the case of, we are not willing to use this insurance, but we need to have this insurance somewhere. So this is the insurance. And we, in the time, as soon as possible, immediately after the signature of this treaty, we are ready to work for alternative arrangements, alternative solutions, technological solutions. But none of these technologies today are available. So we need to get the time.
Okay, so next week we'll negotiate. You will negotiate again.
No, the negotiation is over. The negotiation is over. As the President Juncker said very clearly, there is no more clarification. We went as far as possible, respecting the mandate I got and respecting the principle of the EU. Let me recall that the UK is leaving. We are not leaving the UK. The UK is leaving the EU. Huh? So we want to protect what we are. And at the base of what we are is a single market.
Okay.
Which is much more than a free trade zone.
Okay.
Huh?
We free you from the English. It's not Mr. Barnier, Mr. Brexit, Michel Barnier. L'Europe.
The same man, huh?
The same man. Mais maintenant, parlons de l'Europe.
Now let's talk about Europe, not Brexit. First, what are the consequences for Europe?
Talking about Brexit is also talking about Europe. We're talking about the fundamental principles of the European Union, the single market we built with the United Kingdom over 44 years. And in dealing with Britain's exit, we've never had a mindset of punishment or revenge or been aggressive. I deeply regret Brexit because I think that unity is strength. But we are talking about Europe, enabling the United Kingdom to leave in the right way and maintaining the principles of the European Union.
But what are the consequences of Britain leaving the European Union? What are the consequences for the future of Europe?
The UK is leaving. That's more or less history now, even if it's still in the headlines because the exit has to be managed correctly. What seems important to me, and what I tried to take from the British debate, is why Brexit? There are the consequences of Brexit that we manage in this treaty, but why did 52% of the British people vote against Europe?
And why?
You have to listen, you have to understand, you have to answer. A large number of these voters voted in the same way you get in certain regions of France, Belgium, Italy or other countries. It's the feeling of being abandoned, the feeling of exclusion, the feeling that Europe doesn't protect, that Europe is run by a bureaucracy that doesn't listen. I think we need to learn from Brexit. It's no doubt too late for the UK, but it's time to do it for others.
But is it true that Europe does not protect?
I personally think that over the last 30 years, Europe has often been naive in its trading relationships, that it made a fundamental mistake at the time when globalization took off. The explosion of the bipolar world that was very structured between the Soviet Union on one side and the United States on the other.
So East and West?
Yes, we have seen lots of progress with the growth of globalization, many people who have come out of extreme poverty. But at the same time, there was this idea that everything was now possible. It was laissez-faire, anything goes, ultra-liberalism. This is the fundamental mistake that has probably been made by many countries around the world, that we've been paying for and have not finished paying for since the financial crisis. The lack of global governance. I think it's time we came back, as we have been doing for some years, to the founding principles of the social market economy. That's 3 important words: social market economy, and not just 2.
As Commissioner, it was you who was in charge of regulation after the financial crisis. There has been progress.
Precisely, we began to learn lessons with our backs to the wall. In an emergency, sometimes improvising, we began to rebuild the rules. I presented here in this Parliament and to the Council of Ministers 41 regulations to provide order, transparency, responsibility, morality and ethics where they were missing, for bankers and financial markets, who thought they were allowed to do anything because they had been allowed to do anything. This is one of the lessons we've begun to learn from in recent years. And then there are other forms of protection. It's time to talk about a European defence policy. It's time to better manage our external borders together. It's time to invest together. I'm not a protectionist, Daniel, but I am for protection. And good protection is not protectionism. Good protection means investing together in education, research and innovation.
But you talk about financial reform. If you go around the regions of Europe, what you hear is, yes, but you've saved the banks. You didn't do anything for us. You've only done it for the banks. What do you say to that?
No, that's not true. First, the banks repaid what they were paid, and then they were saved in a hurry, because saving banks saves savers too. And here I'm talking about people. Banks were forced to repay, that was the case. They have been forced to capitalise better, to prepare for new crises, because unfortunately there will be new crises. And then we protected financial consumers, who aren't all very rich people, who are small savers. For example, we created the basic bank account, because you know there are 20 million Europeans who don't have a bank account, 9 million citizens who have been refused a bank account. I made a law that forces every European country, where it wasn't already the case, to have a bank that enables anyone who needs one to open an account.
You were Minister of the Environment. Do you believe Europe can respond to the challenges of climate degradation? Is our thinking up to the task?
Firstly, we need to think at a continental level. This continent, which is mobilised together and must continue to be at the forefront of the fight against climate change. We were so at the Paris conference, we are so in the commitments we've made, but I think we must go much further. I think Green Europe and all the civic, industrial and research implications that it entails must be the priority for the next 10 years.
Can we impose change on the car manufacturing industry? Aren't we sometimes a bit cowardly in the face of the real economic power of these industries?
I think it's in the interest of the industry to make this change in direction. In fact, many industries have already made the shift. This is the only level at which you can impose yourselves, because all these companies work in the same market. I was talking earlier about the importance of this market. 500 million consumers and citizens, 22 million businesses. This is the only space where we can take these decisions and take them together. And it requires consultation. We need to create spaces in which there's discussion. You say impose. I think we still need to prefer a contractual approach to coercion, but I do think now is the time, and there's a real urgency.
Last question. Can't we do more for young people? Can't we do more? There was a time when we talked about help for young unemployed people, or really going full out with Erasmus, having an Erasmus for everyone. I have the impression we're frightened of going too far.
Yes, and I said earlier that we must use, this is my belief, the unity that we built in Brexit for a positive agenda. Brexit is a negative agenda, but we have been united in this extraordinary negotiation. We need European leaders, and that's all of us, citizens are European leaders too, to use this unity for a positive agenda. And at the heart of this positive agenda is, in my opinion, Green Europe, which is a Europe that produces jobs and produces research. There is education, research, innovation, culture. Erasmus lies at the heart of all these fields.
la recherche, l'innovation.
And so if we need to, let's extend the Juncker plan. Jean-Claude Juncker had the merit of launching a plan that mobilised 500 billion euros over a few years. We must extend this effort, invest together, as I said, in education and research, therefore in youth. I think this is the issue of the next 5 or 10 years.
Mr. Brexit, thank you very much.
Thank you for your attention.
Merci.